for my husband. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 26 of Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. I've got my pig mug today. I'm Beth Campbell. I'm a career and mindset coach and mentor, former corporate captive, now helping you find fulfillment. If you need some guidance in finding your career or life happy place, please send me a message or go to bethancampbell.com/coach me. Thank you so much for being here. If you're watching live, let me know that you're here in the comments. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. And of course, make sure to let me know if you have any questions or feedback so I can get to them either today, the end of the episode, or on a future episode. Feeling pretty good today. You know, it's just weird how life is like ups and downs and so much of the stuff that I'm bringing to you, I practice this myself, but of course it's not perfect. And, I had a couple days where, feeling okay, but just, like, where am I going in life, right? And then last night I just had some really, I'll talk about this at some other time in detail, but just I was watching a video that really inspired me and gave me some inspiration. And so it's really amazing when you do this mindset work, how you get in the right place to receive those ideas and inspiration and creativity. It's really amazing. So anyway, let's get to our topic. Today we're going to talk about owning it, taking responsibility when you screw up at work. And I may drop an F-bomb or two in this session. Another thing that I'm very passionate about. I'm talking about this because taking ownership and being accountable and being responsible is such a big part of leadership. And unfortunately, I've seen way too many cases where this did not happen. And some of you might be dealing with this either with yourself or with your boss or your leadership team, where they're not taking ownership, not being responsible or accountable, and in some cases, making other people accountable when they really aren't. And we'll talk about that. So about a decade ago, I'm going to tell you a story. About a decade ago, I was on a call for a project one day, and I was listening to this director level man, and I'll use the term man loosely. And he was ruthlessly throwing this young developer guy under the bus for some missing requirements on this web application that had just been implemented. It was the pet project of this director. So this young developer, let's call him Patrick, right? Patrick was actually transitioning from the director's department, so he was several levels below the director, into my department on my team. So I had some vacancies on my team, and he wanted to get out of where he was. You'll see why in a minute. And he wanted to come work for my team. And so he was kind of in the middle of transition, and this was kind of his final assignment. Once he wrapped this up, he could be fully allocated on my team. So I'd been involved in this project that he was working on for this other department, since hiring Patrick, and I knew it was contentious. I knew that this director had been adding and changing requirements on the fly, and he had not been clear in his requirements. And anybody who's worked in project work knows that this is like 101. This requirements changes and scope changes just makes so much more work for everybody involved. Or not unclear requirements. And he wasn't being nice about it when he would bring this stuff up, and when we would maybe push back and say, hey, this wasn't in the original scope. Project people know exactly what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. Excuse me. So I had several meetings with Patrick, who technically now reported to me, and also his old boss and the director about this project. And it was clear to me that this director, again, remember, this is his pet project. He was just being a dick. He was just being a dick. He either had no clue how projects worked, or he was just being arrogant. Is probably both. I'm definitely the latter. He was definitely being arrogant. Anyway, long story short, too late, already long. Patrick is like working his ass off. He's stressed out from all the pressure, and he's being borderline bullied by this director at the same time. All of this culminates in this project call. There's a number of people on it. When this shitbag director, who was, again, 3 levels above Patrick, he just lights up Patrick and blamed him for the failed project. It wasn't failed. But took zero responsibility for any of it, any of his part in it, which was significant, on an open call with other people attending. He basically just threw him under the bus. And I remember thinking, at the time, how ironic is it that people like this who have to pump themselves up and beat their hands against their chest and like a freaking silverback ape show their power and authority, they're actually the weakest and most insecure people out there, right? We talked about this with the asshead session. He could not take one iota of responsibility for anything. And that is about as weak and insecure as you get. People who own their screw ups or their mistakes, they do so because they're not afraid to fail. They aren't afraid for anybody to see them fail. And they have the confidence to step up and take responsibility for their actions and their decisions. So, director, if for some reason you find this or somebody points you to it and you listen to it and you recognize yourself, you are a weak and insecure shitbag and you know who you are. New Jersey. I'm just going to say it. New Jersey. That's all I'm going to say. New Jersey. So the great lie that we've all been told and that we now tell ourselves is that we have to be perfect. And if we're not perfect, we have to do whatever we can to hide it from everyone else. The truth is, there is nothing more powerful and revealing than putting your failings out to the world, right? It is empowering to like nothing else, because nobody can hurt you. Nobody can hold it over your head. You've already put it out there. What are they going to do, right? You're just owning it. The confident person is the one who stands up and says, hey, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Taylor Swift. So the confident person is the one who says, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I messed up. Let me take responsibility for it. The coward is the one who doubles down, hides their failure, or worse, blames somebody else like this director. And the most interesting thing to me is when you do lie or hide or blame others for your mistakes and then you get caught, which happens a lot, it just ends up being way worse than it would have been if you just owned up to it in the first place. And as we talked about in the asshat episode, people notice that. They see it. They see you lying. They see you throwing somebody under the bus. It is not a good situation for anybody. So one of my favorite stories about somebody having the courage to take responsibility for their mistakes in a good way, like happened about a decade ago. So I was managing a technical team who were responsible for supporting and maintaining this big critical system that we had for the company. Like when this system went down, it's everybody on board, everybody's on a call. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. and it's an ice storm, boom, you're on the call. There's 20 other people and you're all trying to figure out how to fix the problem and get it back ASAP, right? This is how critical it was. So one day, one of my team members, and this happened to be the guy who was considered the technical expert on this system, right? Because my team supported this system. He comes to my desk around lunchtime and he tells me he accidentally deleted the entire database for this critical system in production. So if you don't know what that means, it means he deleted a shitload of data that was used live, like was being used right at the moment in the system. And the gravity of that was huge. Like that data was the core of the system, and that's in how the system worked. Like it wouldn't work without the data. So this was very serious, and it's not the kind of thing a team leader wants to hear when she's getting ready to sit down with her BLT and a side of Cheetos, right? But he came to me right away. He admitted it. He asked for my help. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't yell. I just said, okay, let's figure it out. I don't think he was weak for admitting that he made this colossal and probably very embarrassing mistake. I was proud that he had the courage to come to me right away. And if I'm being honest, I was proud of myself that I created a safe space for him to do so. This guy could have easily said nothing. He could have just walked away, let the shit hit the fan. He's behind the scenes. He could have never owned up to his mistake. It might have taken forever to even figure out what happened. And even then, he could have just said, well, he didn't realize he did it. He could have completely lied. But he didn't do that. He admitted it. He took responsibility, and he asked for help in fixing it, which I gladly gave. So we called our business partners, the people that are working this system from the front end, from the user's perspective. They ran the system. And of course, they weren't ecstatic about it, but not one of them said anything bad. Nobody complained, not even for a second. It was just like, okay. And they pitched in. We were able to restore the database from a backup. We had to do some manual work to get the transactions that had come in while it was down. But all in all, it was just a little extra work for a few people. But you know what? When somebody owns up to their mistake and they work to fix it, most of the time, people are very understanding and willing to help. If this guy had said nothing or tried to cover it up, the shit would have hit the fan tenfold, 100-fold, because it would have gone on and then it would have been a real mess. And I guarantee we would have eventually found out. And maybe he wouldn't have gotten fired for it, but he would have been in a lot of trouble. Not because he fucked up, but because he didn't take responsibility for it and then maybe lied or hid it. In the end, it turned out fine. I was so grateful that he came to me right away. And I'm sure he was grateful to have a boss who didn't yell and help to rally the teams to fix it. The business partners, I'm sure, were grateful it wasn't worse, because believe me, with the system we had worse before. And they didn't have to do a ton of work because we addressed it right away. So it's one of those moments in my career that really sticks out, because I love it when people just own their shit. And this guy did. So you own it when you screw up. If you don't, you're kind of a coward. And if you're a manager and one of your team members screws up, be a safe space for them to admit it. They will learn it's okay to fail. Discomfort is the gateway to growth. Win-win. So do you know of anybody who either did or didn't take responsibility for a mistake, and what happened? I would love to hear your stories too. There are so many. One of my favorites is, in celebrity world, is Emily Blunt, right? Emily Blunt, great example of how to handle when you've made a mistake that comes from your past. So she got called out last year when this video resurfaced. I think it was from the Graham Norton show. And she was telling a story, and she made a comment about the size of her server at a Chili's restaurant, which kind of came out as sort of fat shaming. It wasn't about the size of the server, and there had been apparently some conversation that we didn't see in the video beforehand that would make it a little more sense. But it kind of came out as fat shaming, and Emily totally owned up to it. I mean, she apologized. She said she was mortified. She didn't realize what she was saying at the time, but that she should have known better. So she just took accountability, and that was that, right? I still see it come up every now and then, but it didn't completely derail her career because she owned up to it. And guess what? I don't think Emily Blunt is a fat shamer. She made a mistake. And I have more respect for her now that she took responsibility for it. So, by the way, own it when you F up. Fine up is one of the 8 leadership lessons in my second book, From Blah to Badass, the no bullshit guide to channeling your leadership grit. And if you're listening to this, you can get a free copy of this book in PDF format if you just send me a DM with your email, which also gets you on my email list. And I will also say, I will promise you, I do not send out tons of email. In fact, right now I'm not sending any, so it's just an email. If and when I do, they will not be salesy or boring. They're just going to be cool stuff, just like this show. So if you're interested in a copy of From Blah to Badass, send me a direct message and give me your email, and I will send it to you in PDF form. Okay, I'm going to see some comments, and I see Stephanie. I love how you call it out, Bev. Haha, thank you. I try. Somebody asked, I'm doing a challenge this week on a Facebook group, and one of the questions was, today, in fact, was, what do you do well? And one of the things I said is I speak out and I speak up. So I thank you for acknowledging that, Stephanie. People respect you more when you're honest, vulnerable, and admit to being human. 100%. I have seen it so many times. When you're transparent, you're honest, you own your crap, you take responsibility, people are willing to step in, right? Because they know that you're authentic, and versus somebody who's just going to hide and make somebody's life miserable. She says, such a valid point, Beth. Are leaders creating a space for people to be authentic, honest, feel valued, even when they make mistakes? Yeah, exactly. I don't know that we talk about that a ton in the world of leadership. Like, we talk about a lot of things, but, we talk about empowering people and all that, but, creating that space where people feel comfortable. I consider it I'm humbled. I'm honored if somebody feels that I'm in a safe enough space that they can come to me and tell me that they colossally effed up and they need my help. And because I'm telling you, there are a lot of leaders out there that I've seen them just go ballistic. And I'm humbled that somebody is able to come to me. And I'm proud of myself that I've had great leaders that I've emulated for that. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for your comments and feedback. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about the office superstar dilemma. So this is about those A players, just the badasses who sometimes get forgotten in a chaotic work environment. I saw this a lot in my career. So like if you've been out there just totally rocking it, but you feel like you're on an island, maybe you are the office superstar and you shouldn't be forgotten. So we're going to talk about that. All right, don't forget to connect on LinkedIn or Facebook if you're not already. And if you're watching the replay on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. You are here because you are a badass. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I shall see you tomorrow.